We're in the Gemara today on Daf Hey Amud Beis, towards the top of the Amud, where it says Mai va'omer. So we're in the middle of a subject here, where the sugya starting on Daf Dalet Amud Beis was discussing a beya shenolda on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, whether you could eat it on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara brings that Rav and Shmuel both said that in Rosh Hashanah that the kedusha of both days of Yontiv is considered to be one continuation. And the reason is because in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, Chachamim were mesaken to keep 2 days Kodesh in the event that Eidim showed up late in the day after the Karban Tamid, after the time of Mincha, and therefore the Kedusha of both days is not misafik. And it's a takana that both days should be Kodesh. And therefore it's considered to be one long day of Kodesh. So therefore the egg that's born on the first day will be also on the second day. What the Gemara is discussing over here is after the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted that they could accept the Eidim till the end of the day. So the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah is seemingly similar to all the other Yomim Tovim, where it's just a suffix, which is Kodesh and which is Chayil. But nevertheless, Rav and Shmuel still said that Rosh Hashanah is considered to be one long Kedusha, and it's different than every other Yom Tov. So the Gemara here is discussing why is that the case. So right now, the Gemara is saying that Rav Yosef explained the reason is because once there was an institution of a certain takana that was made with a minyan of a bezdin, so then in order to uproot that takana, you have to have another bezdin that's going to take account to uproot it. Even if the original reason for the takana is not applicable anymore, it doesn't matter. Tzarech minyan acher la'atirei. And therefore over here, once it was instituted that Rosh Hashanah is considered to be one long day, and the egg that's born on the first day is asr on the second day, even after Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai changed the status of what Rosh Hashanah is, that status regarding the egg on Rosh Hashanah remains. So now, in this Beitza, the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef that is actually, he brought a Beitza where you see this concept, and he also brought psukim. So the Gemara will now explain the psukim that he brought. So let's continue inside. Mai va'omer. So here he brought 2 psukim by Matan Torah to prove this point. What are the 2 psukim that he brought? This is what Rav Yosef was saying. Mechti, let us see, ksiv, by Matan Torah it says, Hayuna chaynim l'shleishis yamim, should be prepared for 3 days, al tikshu alisha, to not have any relations with your wife. So that's before Matan Torah. What does it say afterwards? Leichem mar lahem, shuv lechem la aleichem. Go and tell the Yidden that they can go back to their tents. In other words, meaning they can go back and have relations with their wife. So Lamali, why is it necessary for him to say that there's a heter? If he only said in the beginning that it's for 3 days, so isn't it self-understood that afterwards it's going to be allowed to have relations with their wife? Why does the Eibishter have to give a command again specifically that they can go back to their wives, to their tents? Shema mina, so from this we learn, Kol davar shebeminyan, any time you took account and the bezdin made a takana, tzarech minyan acher la'atirei. You're going to have to take account again to undo, to be matter this that was instituted before. Just like over here, that the Eibishter said a command to separate, and then there has to be a second command to undo the first command. As I mentioned, according to Rashi, even the first command over here, there was a time, there was a frame of 3 days. Nevertheless, you need a second command. But Tosfos says that even though it says shloshis yamim, this time was not as a limitation for the Isser of being with their wives. It's saying that in Matan Torah is going to take place in 3 days. If the Eibishter would have l'chatchila given the time limit of 3 days for this Isser, you wouldn't need another command that they can go and be with their wives. So what it's saying is, because this was a Isser to be with their wives in connection to Matan Torah, after Matan Torah, that reason doesn't apply anymore. So it should be self-understood that they can go back to their wives. Nevertheless, you need another mitzvah, another command that they can go back to their wives. So from here we see that you need a minyan acher la'atirei. Now if you'll argue and say that there's a reason there why the Eibishter had to say so. L'mitzvahs oine hudasa. There, it's not just that they're allowed to go back to their wives, but over there it's actually telling them that there's a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah of oine to be with their wives. That's why it's repeating it again. So therefore, Tashema, he says, come in here, I'll bring you another pasuk, also there by Matan Torah, where it says, B'mshoich hayovel, heima yalav ahar. When they hear the sound of a shofar, they can go back up to the mountain after Matan Torah. Mechdi, let us see. Why does the Eibishter have to say this? Ksiv, the pasuk says, "Gamatzoyin va'bakar al yiru el molaharahu." You should not go with your cattle to graze by the mountain. In other words, you should not go up the mountain. That's the Isser that the Eibusha says before Matan Torah. So if so, why does it have to say again after Matan Torah that they can go out to the mountain? If they're only not allowed to go because of Matan Torah, so afterwards it should be self-understood they can go on the mountain. The reason for the Isra doesn't apply anymore. Shmami no. So the fact that it says that the Eibusha had to again command they can go on the mountain, that teaches me Dova shebiminyan tzarech minyan achal atirai. That when there's a count that was taken and there's a takana, you're going to have another count and to undo the first takana. Just like here, the Eibush had to give a command again. Now, the chi teime hanamili b'dayraise, and if you'll argue and say that this is all true regarding a mitzvah that the Eibush gives in the Torah, avo b'derabanan, but when it comes to something which is instituted b'derabanan, loy. So maybe here this doesn't apply. Maybe even after the Bezdin instituted it, when the reason doesn't apply, so then the takana doesn't last, it doesn't remain. So therefore Toshama, therefore Rav Yosef brought the Beitza that we quoted before, that Kerem Revai, the Beitza regarding the Kerem Revai, where there was an institution made that they should bring the payers near Yerushalayim, and they should not redeem them, and then after the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, there was another minyan to undo that takana. For Kerem Revai, the Rabbanon, that takana of Kerem Revai was Midrabbanon, the Ka'amri lay. And there, in the story in the Beitza that was quoted, which was a story about Rabbi Eliezer, so they told Rabbi Eliezer, Kvar nimnu alecha chavirecha, that already your friends, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, already came and took account and was masakin v'tirud, and he was matter that you don't have to bring the fruits to Yerushalayim. Now, if you can argue and say Beitza nami imnu Allah regarding the egg that's born on the first day of Yom Tov, the question of whether you can eat it on the second day of Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah that is, or it's considered to be one long day. So over here you might argue and say that also there's a new count that was taken. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, after the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, changed the status of Rosh Hashanah. He came and said that you could accept the Eidim on Rosh Hashanah till the very end of the day, and therefore, if the second day is Kodesh, the first day is Chayil. If the first day is Kodesh, the second day is Chayil. So didn't Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai change it? So the Gemara explains, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, let's read this again. V'chiteme Beitza nami imnu Allah Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai v'sharyua. Didn't Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai come and take account? In other words, he came and changed the takana of what the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are. So the Gemara explains, no, it doesn't apply to the status of the egg. Ki imnu ha'edus. When he came and instituted and changed the takana that was regarding to accepting the edus. In the time of the Beis HaMikdash, he only accepted until Mincha, and afterwards he came and he changed and he said you can accept the edus all day. However, regarding the original status and the din regarding the egg, that if it's born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it's also for the rest of the Yom Tov and even the second day of Rosh Hashanah, regarding that, he did not change the status. He changed the status of the edus, but not regarding the egg. And therefore, the original halacha regarding the egg, that if it's born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it's also the second day, that remains. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye asks Rav Yosef, how could you say this? How could you say that it was already instituted in the time of the Beis HaMikdash that the egg born on the first day is going to be also on the second day because it's one long kedusha? Both days are kodesh, not because of a suffix. But how could you say that applies to the egg? Otu Beitza b'minyan mi avoy. Was there a takana ever made directly regarding this egg that was born on the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah? Beitza be'edus talya milsa. The whole halacha regarding the egg is all as a result of the takana that they made regarding the edus on Rosh Hashanah. That the edus shouldn't be accepted if it comes late in the day. And that because of that, we keep the first day Kodesh and the second day Kodesh. That was what the takana was about. It was about the day, about the kedusha of both days, that you're not accepting the edus. But there was never a takana that was made directly regarding the egg. The status of the egg, that both days are Kodesh, and therefore the egg is going to be also for both days, that's a result of the takana that they made regarding the accepting of the edus. You don't accept the edus. So it's edus, it's only because they made an issa to accept the edus for the rest of the day and keep both days Kodesh, so therefore it's a Beitza. So therefore, it was the Beitza, the egg, that became Asr as well. It was only a result of that takana. Ishtiri edus. So now after the Churban and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai came along and was masakin that you could accept the edus a whole day, so you're not going to have both days Kodesh. Ishtiri Beitza. So that should change the status of the egg as well, that the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are just a suffix, it's 2 separate days, it's not one long Kedusha, and therefore the egg born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah should be mutter on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. So Abaye disagrees with the reasoning of Rav Yosef. Just like the Gemara said before, regarding the takana of Rav Yechanan ben Zakkai, that his takana is not considered to be a new minyan to undo the takana regarding the egg. It's a takana regarding accepting the Eidus for Rosh Hashanah at the end of the day. So Abaye is saying, if so, even in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, they never made any takana regarding the egg born on Rosh Hashanah. The takana was made regarding the Eidus, that they shouldn't accept the Eidus at the end of the day, and that both days are going to be Kodesh. They never made any takana about the egg. So why can't we say that now, after they changed the takana of the Eidus, automatically the status of the egg born on Rosh Hashanah should change? Apparently, Rav Yosef disagrees with this. Apparently, Rav Yosef holds that in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, since they made both days Vadai Kodesh, and that directly affected the status of the egg that's born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it's as if they instituted that takana regarding the egg. And it's not, you can't undo that Isser until you have a new minyan regarding the egg born on Rosh Hashanah. So that's over here a machlokes between Abaye and Rav Yosef. Now the Gemara brings another reason why the halacha of the egg born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the way it was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, remains the same even after the Churban. Rav Ade and Rav Shalman, Tarvayim, Yibei Kloichis. Rav Ade and Rav Shalman were both from a place called Kloichis. Omri, they said, Af mitakanas Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai ve'elech. Even after Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai instituted that you could accept Eidus and Rosh Hashanah till the end of the day, and both days are not Vadai Kodesh, like it was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, but nevertheless, Beitza Asura, the egg that's born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, will be Yasser on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. What's the reason? My time, What is the reason for this? Because Meheira Yibana Beis HaMikdash, because the Beis HaMikdash is going to be speedily rebuilt. And V'yayimru, and people are going to say, Eshtakid, last year, Milo Yachalnu Beya B'Yom Tov Sheni, did we not eat the egg that was born on first day of Rosh Hashanah on the second day of Rosh Hashanah? So therefore, Hashtina Menechel, now that the Beis HaMikdash is built, and now the institution comes back that they're not going to accept the Eidus for the whole day, and both days are going to be Kodesh. So they're going to say, but still, let us eat the egg now as well. And V'layadi, they're not going to realize that Shtaket, Shtei Kedushas. Last year, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are 2 separate Kedushas. Hein, V'hashte Kedusha Achasi. And now that the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt, so we go back to the way it was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, that they don't accept Eidus at the end of the day, and therefore both days become Kodesh. Fragt the Gemara, if that's the reason, that because of Meheira Yibana Mikdash, and we don't want the people then to make the mistake to do like the year before, so Ihachi Eidos Nami Lekabel. So even this very institution of Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, that since there's no Beis HaMikdash, so therefore you could accept the Eidos till the end of the day, but that as well is a problem. Because then the following year, they're going to think that they could accept the Eidos till the end of the day, even though it's an issue if the Beis HaMikdash is built. It could be an issue with the shiur of the carbon tamid. So shouldn't we be concerned about even just accepting the Eidos, that they will make that mistake the following year if Meheira Yibana Mikdash, when the Beis HaMikdash is built? So again, my time, for what reason? The same point. Meheira Yibana Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash will speedily be built. Last year, didn't we accept the Eidus all day? So now as well, we should accept the Eidus whole day. So the Gemara says, no, we're not concerned for that. There's no comparison here. When it comes to the Eidos, who's the one that accepts the Eidos? The Bezdin. So the Bezdin knows the halacha, they'll be careful, they'll know that now it's different, and we can't accept the Eidos at the end of the day. But Beya Lakol Masura, the egg, it's a question by every individual if you could use the egg for born the first day of Rosh Hashanah for the second day. And that will concern the person will make a mistake and compare it to the previous year. So therefore, regarding the egg, the takana remains that the Beya Shanelda on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, you can't use on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Rava says, Af mitakanas Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai ve'eleich, even after Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai made his takana, that Rosh Hashanah today is not like the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and they accept the Eidus the whole day. So even from after the times, again, sorry, missed a few words here. Nevertheless, even after the Takana of Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, Beya Asura, the egg that born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah will still be Asur on the second day. Why? Miloi Meide Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai not Meide? She'im bo Eidim min mincha l'mayla. That if Eidim came from mincha forward, shenoyegin oisayim kodesh l'macha kodesh. That we consider to be that both of the days are kodesh. So Rashi explains what Rav is saying is, even if Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was misaken that you could accept the Eidos the entire day, and therefore you're going to count the Aleph Tishrei. You're going to start counting from this day, even though the Eidim came very late in the day. But nevertheless, you're going to start counting from the first day, from that day that the Eidim came. But nevertheless, the fact that they were misaken, that you make 2 days Yontif, the first day should be Kaidish and the second day should be Kaidish, the way the Takana originally was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai never uprooted. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai never changed that Takana. So therefore, that Takana remains even today, that the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are one long Hemshech, one long Kedusha. It's both Vadai Kaidish, and the egg born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah will be Aser on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Now the Gemara concludes, bringing back the point that was mentioned before already. Hilchase kavasei de Rav bahani tlas. The halacha is according to Rav in these 3 machlokes that we quoted here. And what were they? One was here regarding this, the egg born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, whether it's mutter on the second day. So here Rav was stringent. Rav and Shmuel both said that it's aser. And then we had the second machlokes before that was regarding an egg born on the first day of a Yom Tiv. Will it be also on the second day of Yom Tiv, a regular Yom Tiv, Sheni Shel Golius? So there, Rav was lenient, and Rav says that if it's born the first day, it's mutter on the second day. And then there was a machlokes of Rav and Rabbi Yochanan that we had earlier on Daf Daled Amud Aleph, regarding Neil de Bezeh, regarding Shabbos and Yom Tiv. When you had a Shabbos and Yom Tiv that are right near each other, if it's born on a Shabbos, would it be mutter on a Yom Tiv? And over there, Rav was stringent. So Rav says, regarding these 3 things, the halacha is like Rav, bein lekula, whether it's a leniency, like it is by Yom Tov Sheni Shel Golius, and Bein L'chumra, or whether it's a stringency, like it is by Rosh Hashanah, and by the Shabbos and Yom Tov, where the egg was born in one of them. Sagt the Gemara, Rav said another halacha, Meis b'Yom Tov Rishon. If you have a person that passed away on the first day of Yom Tov, Yisasku Boya Mammon, so you get Goyim to do what they have to take care of him, to bury him, and so on. Even though usually Amir al-Nachri is Aser, but for the covet of a mace, they allowed Amir al-Nachri on the first day of Yom Tov. Mace be Yom Tov Sheni. However, if he passed away on the second day of Yom Tov, so then Yisaske by Yisrael. So then even Yidden are allowed to take care of him and do everything they have to bury him. And he added, Va'afile b'shnei yomim tovim shel Rosh Hashanah. This is true even regarding the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Although we said before that it's considered to be like one long day, it's a Kedusha that's Vadai Kodesh both days, but not regarding the mace. By a mace, they were not machmer, and the second day, a Yid can go ahead and bury a mace. Masha'en came bebeya, which is not the halacha regarding beya, as we just learned. Regarding beya, egg born the first day of Rosh Hashanah is also the second day. It's considered to be one continuation. But regarding a mace, for the covered mace, they were makel, and an egg born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, a mace that died the first day of Rosh Hashanah, second day that is, again, a mace that died the second day of Rosh Hashanah, you're allowed to bury him. So the Gemara, Nerdoi said, Av bebeya. The halacha by Rosh Hashanah is the same regarding an egg, that if it's born the first day of Rosh Hashanah, you're allowed to use the egg on the second day. And they explain their opinion. What are you thinking? Why would you say that the status the way it was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, that they instituted that both days are Kodesh, should be even now as well? So you're thinking the reason is because maybe just like the original takana was, that we have to keep both days Kodesh because the Eidim will come late, and then the 30th day of Elul is going to be Lamed Elul, and then the Yom Tov is only going to be, the Aleph Tishrei is only going to be the next day, so therefore they are instituted to keep both days Kodesh in the event that happens. That's what you're thinking about. So it's based on that fact, on that institution that they made then in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. But, Amar Rav Chinana, Bar Kahana Amar Rav, that Mimais Ezra ve'elech, from the times of Eves that are going forward, Lo matzinu elul mober. We never find that such a thing happened, that the Eidim came late, and they had to make it as a Lamed Elul, and then they began Aleph Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah was the next day. We never find that this actually happened. So now, of course, this means besides that one time that it happened that the Eidim came late and the shiur was niskalkal, as we brought before, and then they instituted that they should not accept the Eidos until later in the day, and they should keep the first day Kodesh and the second day Kodesh. If the Eidim do come later on, so they only listen to the Eidim the second day, but then they keep both days Kodesh. That's what the takana that they made. But Mazutra said, or actually who was it here? Rav Chinna bar Kahana Omar Rav. He said this actually never happened. This never happened that the Eidim ended up coming late. So therefore this is not something that you have to be concerned about at all. So therefore now, today, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, we don't consider the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah to be a continuation of one Kedusha. Today, we say that Rosh Hashanah is just like any other Yom Tif, where it's a Sveika de Yomeh, the first and the second day. It's not a Hemshech. Mazutre, going back to the halacha of the mace. So Mazutre said, Lo Yamaran, it wasn't said, this halacha of the mace, that on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, even the Yidden are allowed to take care of him and bury him, Ela de Ishtai, only if he's already remaining for a while, the mace, and we're afraid that it's not going to be covered for the mace, like Rashi says, Shlo Yasriach, Avalo Yishtai, Mashihinan Le. But if it's not yet a long time, and you can wait, so then you wait until after Yom Tov in order to bury him. Ravashi argues and says, Afal Gav de Lo Yishtai, Nami loy mashinale. Even if it hasn't been a while, for example, he didn't pass away the second night, the night, so it's not a long time. It's not long before the end of Yom Tov, but nevertheless, loy mashinale. We don't wait. You go and bury him right away on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, even on Yom Tov. My time, what's the reason? Yom Tov Sheni legabi meis kechol shavyu rabbanon. When it comes to Yom Tov Sheni, which is a takana midrabanan, regarding a mace, they consider it to be like a day of chayil, and you're allowed to bury him. And afilu lemegas leglima. This includes even to cut a piece of garment that he needs. And as Rashi says, this does not refer to the tachrichim, because that wouldn't be a chiddush. Obviously, the tachrichim would be allowed, but it's another garment, even if it's not needed as tachrichim. Ulemegas leasa, and to cut a hados that they used to use then when they bury, when they do doing the kvura. Even this, it's all allowed to be done on the second day of Yom Tov because it's totally chayil, even Rosh Hashanah, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, it's totally chayil regarding this inyan, regarding a mace. Amar Ravina says, but now that we live in a place amongst wicked goyim, and what happened? Then they made a gzeira, they forced Yidden into labor. And Yidden would come and tell them it's Yom Tov today and they can't work, and that's how they would get out of the forced labor. So Chayshina, we're afraid to allow Yidden to go and bury a mace, because the guy will notice this and they'll say, 1 second, it's Yom Tov, you can't work, so why are you burying this person? Okay, just to conclude this concept here, so from our Gemara we see the halacha is regarding a mace, the second day of Yom Tov is totally chayil, and a Yid is allowed to do everything necessary for the kvura. However, Tosfos brings from Rabbeinu Tam and others that it's not so pashut. Rabbeinu Tam was not matter this. Rabbeinu Tam said, there's Gemara in Shabbos that says certain things that are really mutter, but for places that are not b'nei Torah, we're afraid if you matter something, they're going to come to be mezalzel in the Yom Tov. So Rabbeinu Tam did not allow to be matter this, that a Yid should go and bury someone on the second day of Yom Tov. And the Alter Rebbe brings all this in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Tov Kuf Chavav as well, that even though Me'ikar Adin, the second day of Yom Tov is totally chayil, and a Yid could do a kvura, but nevertheless the minig is that it should not be done through a Yid. Ravina Avi Yosef Kamei de Ravashi. Ravina was sitting, that's how the Girsa here is, he was sitting by Ravashi, B'shnei Yomim Tovim Shel Rosh Hashanah. And it was Rosh Hashanah, the 2 days of Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, and it was the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Chazeh Da'ava Otziv, he saw that Ravashi was sad. Omalei said to Ravashi, Amai Otziv Mar, why are you sad? Omalei, so Ravashi answered, Lo Yasivi Eruve Tavshilin, because I did not make the Eid of Tavshilin. And Eid of Tavshilin is when Shabbos comes out right after Yom Tov. So in order to be allowed to cook from Yom Tov to Shabbos, even though usually midrabanan it's aser, so you have to prepare food from before Shabbos, from before Yom Tov that is, as an Eid of Tavshilin. We'll learn about this in the second Perek, and then you're allowed to cook from the Yom Tov to the Shabbos following. So he forgot to put the Eid of Tavshilin. It was Rosh Hashanah on Thursday and Friday, and he forgot to make the Eid of Tavshilin on the night of Yom Tov. Amalei, so Ravina says to Ravashi, so what's the issue? V'loisiv mara idna. Why don't you make the Eid of Tavshilin right now? Mila Yama Rava, didn't Rava say, Maniach Adam eruvet tafshilin mi Yom Tov l'chaverai? If you have 2 days Yom Tov before Shabbos, so then you can make the Erev Tafshilin for 1 day, between 1 day and the next day of Yom Tov. And how do you do this? Umasna. You make a condition. What's the condition you make? If you're making the Erev Tafshilin on the first day of Yom Tov, so you say, if today is not Yom Tov, if today is really a Yom Chayil, so then my Erev Tafshilin I'm making is today, and then tomorrow I'll be allowed to cook. And then tomorrow you say again that if today is Yom Tov, so then I already made the Erev Tafshilin yesterday. And if tomorrow, the second day of Yom Tov is really Chayil, so then I can cook today. It's a Chayil, I can cook for Shabbos. So if you have 2 days Yom Tov, since it's just a Sveike, the Yaimeh, so you can make your Erev Tafshilin with a condition that if it's needed, you have it, and if it's not, because the second day is Chayil, then you can cook. So why can't you do the same thing here on the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah? Amalei, so Rav Ashi answers him, when did Rava say you can make this condition regarding 2 days of Yom Tov, b'shnei yomim tovim shel Golius? That's regarding all other Yomim Tovim when you have the 2 days of Yom Tov. B'shnei yomim tovim shel Rosh Hashanah mi Amar. But regarding the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, did Rava say such a thing? 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, as we've been learning, is different. Over here we consider both days to be one long Kedusha. It's not because it's fake Keduyayim, just like it was in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and even now in the time of Golos, it does not change. Fragt the Gemara, but v'ha'amri nerdoi, but didn't Nerdoi say, as we quoted before over here as well, that af bebeitza muteres, that even regarding an egg born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, it's mutter on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And in other words, even by Rosh Hashanah, we do consider the 2 days to be like every other Yom Tov, that it's a Sveike the Yaimeh, it's not one long Kedusha, and therefore the egg born on the first day will be mutter on the second day. So he compares Rosh Hashanah to every Yom Tov. Amalei Rav Mardechai, so Rav Mardechai, which was apparently also there, and he was a student of Rav Ashi, so he says to Ravina, V'feidish Amalimar, the master, Rav Ashi, clearly said to me, that he disagrees to this that Nadai said. The Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah is different than every other Yom Tov. It is one long Kedusha. So you can't eat the egg born on the first day of Rosh Hashanah on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, and therefore you can't make an Erev Tavshilin with the condition that we mentioned before. And that's why he was sad. Zog the Gemara Itmer, we learned the following machlokes. Efroyach sheneled b'Yom Tov. A chick that hatched on Yom Tov. Rav says, Asa. It's Asa to eat it on Yom Tov. Shmuel, v'tem Rabbi Yechanan Amar, Mutter. So either Shmuel or Rabbi Yechanan said that it's allowed. So what's the reason for this machlokes? Rav says it's forbidden muktzah, because it's muktzah. It wasn't fit when Yom Tov came in to be eaten. It was still in the egg. So therefore, if it hatches on Yom Tov, it's a new thing that came out, and it's muktzah. Shmuel v'teimer Rabbi Yechanan Amar mutter. Shmuel or Rabbi Yechanan said it's allowed. Hayel umater atzmai b'shchita. Since now that it's born, it hatches, and if the chick comes out, so now there's a heter that this causes. Which heter? Before, when it was in the egg, you couldn't eat it. Now when it comes out, you can eat it if you shecht it. So since when it comes out, its status changes, and there's a heter that this causes regarding shchita, so too its status changes regarding the muktzah. That isser of muktzah that was upon it before changes, and now the heter, it's mutter, and this muktzah doesn't apply anymore, and you can eat it. An interesting thing. I mean, it's an interesting svara to connect these two heterim. Once it gets a heter for shchita, so automatically the isser of muktzah also becomes allowed. Amrilei Rav Kahana v'Ravasi l'Rav. So Rav Kahana and Ravasi asked Rav. So you're saying that a chick that hatched on the first day of Rosh Hashanah is going to be. So Rav said that it's going to be aser. So they asked him the question, V'chima bein zeh le'egel shenoled b'Yom Tov. But what's the difference between this case and a clear halacha that says in a Beitza, which the Gemara is going to quote soon in Amud Beis, where there it says that an egel, a calf that's born on Yom Tov, that over there it's allowed. So if that's allowed, so why should a chick that's born on Yom Tov not be allowed as well? Amalahu. So Rav answered them, there's a simple difference. Because over there the calf is not muktzah. If you would shecht this the mother and you find the calf inside, it would be fit to be eaten together with the shechita of the mother. So therefore, from the beginning of Yom Tov, it wasn't muktzah. So if it's born on Yom Tov, you can eat it. But whereas over here, this egg that had the chick inside, which before, when Yontif came in, it wasn't right to eat bichlal, and now it's born and they have a chick here, so that's muktzah. Not the same thing at all. But they continued and they asked, but what would be the difference between the case of the chick, le'egel shenoled min hatreifa, and an egel, and a calf that's born from a treifa? In other words, the mother is a treifa, and you can't say that the egel born from the treifa is prepared to be eaten, and it wasn't muktzah because it could have been eaten together with the mother that was shechted. If the mother is a treifa, the mother could not be eaten. And nevertheless, the calf that's born on Yontif is still mutter. That's what we see from that Beitza. It doesn't make a distinction. Any calf that's born on Yontif is mutter to be eaten. Whether the mother is a kosher, whether the mother is a treifa, either way it's mutter. So why is it mutter if, according to you, there's an issue of muktzah over here? Shasik Rav. So Rav was quiet and he didn't answer this question. So this is, Rav doesn't answer, and the halacha still remains like Rav, even though he didn't have an answer for this question. Right, this is a Gemara that's quoted that Chassidus brings to prove the concept that sometimes when you're quiet and you can't give an answer, but you know that it's right what you're saying. This is the concept of chachma without the bina. When you have the point, but you can't explain it, that's what Shasik Rav means. So the Gemara, Rav Yosef, my time is Shasik Rav. So why was Rav quiet about this? Why didn't Rav answer the following answer? Why didn't Rav answer them? That in the case where the calf is born from a mother that's a treifa, so true, the mother which is a treifa is not prepared for Yom Tiv to be shechted, for a human being to eat, it's treifa, but nevertheless, it's still muchan on Yom Tiv because the mother could be used to give to klavim to eat, to give to the dogs to eat, so therefore it's considered to be muchan. Okay? So therefore, therefore the answer that Rav said before, to distinguish between the froyach and the egel, applies even over here. The froyach, when it's inside the egg, was not fit to be used when Yontif came in. So therefore it's muktzah when it's born on Yontif. Whereas an egel was fit to be used when Yontif came in. Whether it's a shchuta, it's fit to be shachted. Even if it's a treifa, it's fit to be given for the dogs to eat. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye explained this and said, how could the Rav give such an answer? That a treifa, the egel, that the mother is a treifa, so the mother was not muktzah, it's fit to be given for the dogs, and therefore it's not muktzah. Do you say such a thing? That if it's fit to be given for dogs, it's not considered to be muktzah for a human being? Hashte, so now, muchan la'adam. In a case where you have something that's prepared, that you have it, that it could be used for a human being. But lo yava muchan leklavim. It's not considered to be that it's prepared to be used to feed for a dog. And if you want to use it for a dog, for that, it's going to be considered to be muktzah. And the Gemara brings a source for this. That Nami learned in the Mishnah, and this was quoted in the beginning of the Masechta here. Mechatchen es adluin lefnei behema. You're allowed to cut bluin, pumpkins, to feed animals on Yontif. It's not considered to be an extra tircha. Vesanevele lefnei klavim. And you're also allowed to take the nevela that died on Shabbos or on Yontif, and it was muktzah, before it wasn't designated for this, and you're allowed to give it to eat for the dogs. He doesn't hold of muktzah. Rav Yehuda says, Im loy hoisen nevela me'erev Shabbos asura. If it wasn't a nevela from before Shabbos, it's going to be asur. Lefi she'ena min amuchan. Because it wasn't prepared for the dogs to eat. In other words, because it wasn't on the Vela when Shabbos came in, so what was it? It was a live animal which was designated for people. It's muchan for people to eat. So if it's made for people, so then, if now it became an Avela on Shabbos, it's not considered to be muchan for klavim. Now it's made for dogs. If it was before prepared for people, and now it's prepared for dogs, it's considered to be muktzah, because it was not prepared when Shabbos came in for the dogs. So what do we see over here? That muchan la'adam lo yava muchan leklavim. Taisus points out that it's very difficult to understand what the Gemara is saying, because even though when it was alive before Shabbos, it was muchan la'adam, so to speak, it was designated for a person to eat. But it was designated, but it wasn't muchan, it wasn't prepared for a person to eat. You still have to shecht it. And if it was alive when Shabbos came in, it wasn't shechted yet, so it wasn't prepared b'chlal for a person to eat. So it's not muchan, not la'adam, because it wasn't shechted, and it's not muchan leklavim, because it's alive. It's not a nevela. He didn't want to use it for the klavim. So Taisvis in one answer says that you're going to have to say that this Beitza is speaking about Yontif. Even though it says it's Shabbos, you have to change the Girsa and say that we're speaking about Yontif. So you could shecht it on Yontif. So if it was alive when Yontif came in, it was Muchan. It was totally Muchan for a person to use, to eat, to shecht on Yontif. And nevertheless, if it dies and it becomes an Avela, it's not Muchan leklavim. That's a different thing. For the dogs, it was not designated for that. That's one pshat in Taisvis. He changes the Girsa. Another thing Taisvis says, even if you don't change the Girsa, but in the language of Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda used this expression that lefi she'eina mina muchan, which seems to be extra words, so therefore from there the Gemara learns this concept that Rabbi Yehuda is telling you, that you might say that this animal alive before Yontiv is not muktzah, it's prepared for people to eat. But nevertheless, if it dies on Shabbos, speaking on Shabbos that is, but if it dies on Shabbos and now you could only use it for dogs, for that it's muktzah. It was only prepared for people to eat. It was not prepared for dogs. So for that it remains muktzah. So that's what we see over here. So the Gemara now concludes the question. So if so now muchan leklavim have a muchan la'adam. So you're going to tell me that something that was prepared from before Shabbos for dogs, which is the case we're talking about before, the treifa. If the mother was a treifa and it was prepared for dogs to eat, so it's going to be considered to be muchan la'adam? Are you going to say that just because it was prepared for dogs, therefore it's considered to be prepared for a human being? So the Gemara, in other words, is saying here, if something prepared for a human being is not considered to be prepared for a dog, and when it comes to feed it for a dog, if now it could only be used for a dog, it's considered to be muktzah for that use, the reverse should for sure be true. That if it was only prepared for the use to feed a dog before Yontif, for sure, if now you want to use it for a person, for sure it should be aser. So therefore, how can we say that the treifa is not muktzah, because it's prepared for the dogs? So the Gemara says, "Oh malay." So Rav Yosef answered to Abaye, yes, actually, it's true. Muchan le'adam lo yava muchan leklavim. Something that was set aside for a person to use before Yontif or before Shabbos, so that was set aside for a person, but it's not considered to be prepared for dogs. If later it could only be used for dogs. Why? The ma'id chazi leila inish, something that's fit for human consumption. You don't throw it to the dogs. So if you were planning on eating this, you were never planning on using it for dogs at that point. So later if it dies, it becomes an avela, and now you have to use it for dogs. That's something totally new. You were never planning on doing that. So therefore it's muktzah to use it for the dogs. But on the other hand, muchan leklavim, something that was prepared, that was designated to be used for the dogs, which is what we're speaking about over here, the treifa that was prepared to be fed to dogs from before Yontif, have a muchan la'adam. That's something that is considered to be prepared even for a human being, if it will happen that it could be used for human consumption. Like it happens over here, that you have the egel that's born from this treifa, and now the egel is fit for human consumption. So why is that? Why is it considered to be prepared for the person? The daite, the inish, achal midi de chazile, because a person's intention always is, let him eat for himself, whatever it's going to be possible. He's not going to leave it for the dogs if it's fit for human consumption. So therefore, this treifa, even though it was prepared for dogs, that's considered to be prepared also for a human being, because that's what the person is thinking. If there's going to be an egel born here and I'll be able to eat it for myself, of course I'm going to take it for myself. So therefore, it is considered to be prepared for a person. Okay, the Gemara now brings, regarding this machlokes we had before, between Rav and Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, regarding the Efroyach, the chick that was born on Yontif. Tanya kvasei the Rav, in one brayse it says like Rav, and Tanya kvasei the Shmuel v'yitayim Rabbi Yochanan. And in another brayse we learned like Shmuel or Rabbi Yochanan. Tanya kvasei the Rav, in one brayse it says like Rav, Egel shoneled b'Yontif. When you have a calf that's born on Yontif, so mutter. That's going to be mutter. Efroyach shoneled b'Yontif. But if you have a chick that's born on Yontif, aser. That's going to be aser. Oma hefresh ben zelazeh. So what's the difference? Zeh muchan agav imoy b'shchita. So like the svara Rav we said before for Rav, when it comes to an egel, so it's not considered to be muktzah because it's considered to be prepared together with the mother that could have been shechted from the beginning, so it's not muktzah. V'zeh ene muchan agav imoy. The chick that came out of the shells of the egg was not prepared when Yontif came in, and therefore, now that it's born on Yontif, it's muktzah. That's one brayse, clearly like Rav. Tanya kavasei the Shmuel v'yitayim Rabbi Yochanan. And another brayse that says like Shmuel or Rabbi Yochanan, egel shenoled b'Yontif mutter. An egel that's born on Yontiv is allowed to be eaten, and also v'froyach sheneiled b'Yontiv mutter. A chick born on Yontiv is also mutter. My time, what's the reason? So for the egel, the reason is muchana gavimai. The egel was fit to be eaten together with the mother, so there's no issue of muktzeh b'chlal. And v'zeh, when it comes to the chick, even though there is an issue of muktzeh, but mater atzmai b'shchita, like the svara the Gemara said before, since when it's born, the heter for shchita comes about, before it couldn't be eaten, and now there's a heter through shchita. Once there's a heter for the inyan of shchita, the heter also applies that the isser of muktzeh is removed as well. Tana Rabbanan, so we learned in the Beitza, Efroyach sheneiled b'Yontiv, a chick born on Yontiv, it's asa. It's asa to be eaten, like the opinion of Rav. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Af b'chayil asa. A chick, immediately when it's born, is also asa, even on a weekday. Why? Because its eyes didn't open up yet, and therefore, it's like it's still inside, the status of the chick when it's inside the shell is like a sheretz. It's a creeping, crawling thing that's not allowed to be eaten. Come on, Nozla de Tanya. So according to whose opinion, there's the following Beitza go. When it says the double lashon is sheretz, hasheretz, that creeps and crawls on the ground. This comes to say that these chicks that are born, immediately when they're born and their eyes are not opened up, so then it has a halacha of a sheretz. Keman, according to whose opinion is this? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. This is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion, as we just quoted. That's the conclusion of the Gemara here regarding the subject of the egg of the chick that's born on Yom Tov.